Piensa en azul, think blue, because we have been working on this project for several months now, and the launching of the project will be made on Friday on Castelo Rio Branco. Then, without any further comment, but saying hello to my friend Pawan Patel there in Washington, D.C., in the World Bank site. Our office is just in front of the World Bank premises. Saying hello to him, I give the word to Jorge Barbosa, the coordinator of the project. Jorge, go ahead.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to see everybody here. I met a lot of you already today, and it's been very exciting. Just for general information, we will be conducting this session in English. I believe there is translation. I hope so for those that might not speak English, but rather Portuguese or Spanish. And just to say brief words, bienvenidos a todo el mundo, gracias, ya los he conocido algunos, pero esta sesión será en inglés. Creo que hay traducción y pues seguimos la conversación. También pueden hacer preguntas a lo largo de la discusión, pero también al final, ¿ok? En español, en inglés o en portugués. There will be a chance for questions as well in English, in Portuguese or Spanish, and as a moderator, I promise you to get your questions to the right panelists and presenters. We're very excited to have you here. I want to briefly thank Mr. Jose Maria Anton for having us here, for convening all of these wonderful partners here to Bahia, as well as to the governor of Bahia and the Secretary of Education. Everybody has been wonderful, and we're very excited about being able to present Think Blue, Power of Virtual Educa, and Innovation in Ocean Education a portal and project here to all of you today, so we can continue the discussions throughout the week. I also want to welcome our colleague as well from the World Bank who presented this morning the World Development Report, Mr. Leandro Costa. He was very graceful. Thank you for your intervention this morning, and feel free as well to ask any questions or participate. Okay, now we can start the session officially. Thank you for your patience. Again, my name is Jorge Barbosa. I'm the coordinator of the Think Blue Power of Virtual Educa platform, or portal as well. And today we have this very interesting session on the role of education in the blue economy. Now, we have a couple of very good speakers. We're going to be starting with a keynote presentation by our senior economist at the World Bank, Dr. Pawan Patel, whom leads some of the work on the blue economy, especially in the Caribbean as well as in the South Asia region. So he will. So now, without further ado, I want to begin by introducing our keynote speaker, Dr. Pawan Patel. He's joining us remotely, as I mentioned, and discussing setting the stage for the blue economy and the importance of education for advancing the blue economy in the different regions and the World Bank's agenda on this particular matter. So, Dr. Patel, are you on the line? I saw you a little bit earlier, a couple of minutes ago. You're still there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much. Wonderful. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you very much, Jorge, for your kind introduction. On behalf of the World Bank Group, I'd like to thank the government of Bahia and the Secretary General of Virtual Educa, the Secretary of Education of Bahia, the Governor of Bahia, and all the colleagues and partners of Virtual Educa's ecosystem that I've had a pleasure of interacting with for well over 12 months now. This kind invitation to give this keynote address is greatly appreciated, and I'll be speaking briefly for the next 20 minutes or so on the blue economy and why education matters. So for a moment, I'm going to share my screen and go through a presentation, and then I'll come back towards the end. Wonderful. So the presentation is on the blue economy and why it matters. When you look at our planet, what do you see? Do you see land? Do you see blue and ocean and water? While we know our land well, do we really know our ocean? Did you know that less than 5% of the ocean is actually explored? Yet, what we know about the ocean seems very promising. It's full of life and it's full of opportunity. In fact, according to the OECD, the Organization of the OECD, and the World Bank, what this means is that the greatest number of new jobs will come from ocean sectors. In fact, the OECD said that ocean-based industries will drive overall global growth and employment growth between 2010 and 2030. This should be a sign of hope for the young people around the world, that jobs are going to be there, but in areas and in sectors and in places perhaps not really known before. But the question is, are we educating young people for this future? Are we, as a community of educators, of scientists, of professionals, of technologists, are we truly thinking blue? So, why are the oceans important? What is actually driving the OECD and World Bank projections on global growth and the future of new jobs in the context of the ocean space? Well, oceans are responsible for many different types of things that you may or may not know. For example, 1 billion people in developing countries depend on fish, meaning seafood, for their primary source of protein. And there are an estimated 300 million primary jobs linked to the oceans globally. I'm sure everybody is wondering about climate change and how that affects the ocean, and certainly what it means in the context of our daily life. What people haven't realized, and what science has actually proved, is that the ocean actually absorbs 5 times more carbon and sequesters 5 times more carbon than tropical forest ecosystems. So what this means essentially is that our planet's coasts and oceans provide jobs, food, tourism, and oxygen for life. Many things that we often take for granted, but with some intentionality, it becomes more and more clear why we all need to think about our oceans in a much different way, and why we need to think differently. Think blue. Another important statistic that drives many countries' decision-making, which of course means our finance ministers and all the different members of cabinets of countries, including what drives ultimately education budget, because that comes from usually national treasuries, is the fact that increasingly the global's wealth of the world is going to start being amassed and assessed from more and more from the ocean space. According to OECD, once again, the current annual return on our global oceans wealth is assessed at approximately $1.5 trillion per year. So that means that there's tremendous value coming from our oceans that you may or may not be aware about, that young people may or may not be aware about. But certainly it's something that is only going to increase over time. So where is this actually wealth coming from? Well, if we take something like fisheries, well, just on the coasts of Bahia, on the coast across Brazil, and like with many ocean-facing nations and provinces across the planet, many are involved in different types of fisheries. For example, globally, though, what we know is that about 85 nations and $102 billion per year are changing hands in the international trade in fish and fish products. What is surprising to many is that it is actually 2 times the value of the trade in coffee. Just imagine that. The trade in fish is actually larger than the trade in coffee that you have had this morning and perhaps are drinking right now. But that's not all the oceans provide. For example, it's a source of a lot of tourism. Just if you look at coral reefs in particular, we estimated that approximately $9 billion a year is made in ecotourism related to coral reefs. So what we essentially have are tremendous natural assets or value that's coming from these ocean spaces that's going to drive future job growth, future economies of these nations for years and years to come. But are we doing the necessary things that are required to truly understand and protect these resources and actually ensure that we derive this wealth from these ocean spaces? Well, the problem is, and again, with opportunity comes challenges, with challenges come opportunities, is that human activities threaten ocean ecosystems. I think if you are familiar with the ocean spaces, when you went to the beach last time, how much rubbish did you see washed up upon the shore? Plastic bottles, plastic rubbish, medical devices, other types of plastic utensils. Well, in fact, there are 46,000 pieces of plastic on every square mile of ocean space. And some actually estimate that there'll be actually more plastic in terms of weight than the weight of fish in the sea in the next many decades. Now, that is quite a terrifying thought. In addition to that, there's several different types of challenges that come from our ocean space and threaten these future jobs. That includes agriculture runoff and other sources of pollution. In fact, globally, there are over 405 dead zones across the ocean areas, which means essentially virtual dead spaces where nothing can live. There's very little oxygen in the water, and what that means is that it chokes off life. Essentially, 95,000 square miles of this is as a result of runoff from agriculture. So again, sticking to our fishing story, again, something that we can all be much more familiar with, or we all are familiar with when it comes down to thinking about our oceans and ocean spaces. All of these things have an impact on ocean wealth, and fish landings are in decline from consequences of things like overfishing. And if you look at the graph there, what this essentially means is that there's excess capacity, which is the blue line going up, chasing too few fish, meaning the red line going down, which means that the catch per unit capacity declines over time. So what this means is that there are too many vessels chasing too few fish. And as a result of that, what does this mean for the future of our food systems globally? So again, there are many things that come from our oceans and our global oceans that have a direct impact on us as human beings that we need to be more cognizant about, be more aware about, and start to incorporate not only in our thinking, but also in our education of ourselves and of our young people. So essentially, when we talk about what is the global oceans blue economy, I want you to understand one thing, and that is when you hear about the blue economy in the context of the oceans, what it really means is that it's a sustainable ocean economy where economic activity is in balance with ocean health. And that is really the main message that we're here to give today. The fact that unless you balance the economic benefits that come from natural assets like our ocean spaces with the health of those ocean ecosystems, we won't be able to truly derive the economic potential in a sustainable way that comes from ocean areas. And what that means in turn is that it has a direct impact on what the future holds for our young people in terms of economic opportunity, in terms of new jobs, and the kinds of jobs that they're going to have access to. In fact, when it comes down to it, and when we see the surveys that are done of young people, most of them say that the reason that they pursue education when they get old enough to understand the merits of it is to get a decent job. So the question again is that, are we preparing adequately, no matter at what level, our young people to be prepared for this future where they can actually be educated with a job in hand in order to fulfill the requirements that they need for their life? Well, the interesting thing is that all of us economists are realizing more and more that we need to have innovation and acceleration in ocean education if we're going to have a hope of being able to provide opportunity for young people across the planet. And as a result of that, it seemed very fulfilling and worthwhile to actually pair the topic of oceans and the economics of oceans with the necessity of educating at all different levels, young people and decision makers alike, in the context of oceans. So therefore, we need innovation in ocean education. And a particular report that the World Bank and OECS recently completed suggests that one recommendation is to basically do just that. Focus on raising awareness and building a virtual education platform for the blue economy to explain why it matters, to educate the public, the private sector, civil society stakeholders, and young people across education systems, both formal and non-formal. And in fact, as our colleague from OECS will remind us later on, this is a topic that gets more and more discussion at the highest levels across not only small island developing states, which is represented by the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, but also larger countries from South Asia and other places around the world, as we'll be hearing from Professor Atri a little bit later. So really, what I'm trying to suggest is that in order for us to be able to prepare young people for the new reality of our future over the next 20 years, we need to innovate, we need to accelerate, and we need to educate. We need to think blue, and the way that we're able to accomplish this is by focusing on innovation in ocean education. And with that, I'd like to thank you very much for the opportunity, and I will try to come back here. So thank you very much for the opportunity to share some opening remarks on setting the context or the stage to why the oceans actually matter, what is the economic potential of those oceans, and why it actually relates to education. And for example, why Virtual Educa, the World Bank, and different countries around the world have been collaborating together on Thinking Blue, through Think Blue, to be able to raise the discourse globally with decision makers, with teachers, with educators, with tech providers, and with young people themselves, students and learners of all types, to be able to pivot and be prepared for the new reality. Thank you very much, and I encourage all of us, if we're not already, to start thinking blue.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Dr. Patel, for joining us and for delivering that message, not only of inspiration, but as well as grounded in actual factual research, economics, and as well as scientific research in many regards. There has been quite a wealth of these analytical pieces that do ground a lot of this work, and we're very excited about this. Please feel free to ask me any questions throughout the day as well, not only about those analytical pieces that I'm saying, but also about Think Blue, powered by Virtual Educa. Before we move on to the next speaker, I want to also invite you all to come visit the Think Blue exhibit space that's right across the hallway. We have a wonderful exhibit content provided by our friends at the Smithsonian Learning Lab, whom are present here today, as well as from other colleagues from Discovery Education, as well as from Envirotech Education, coming directly from Australia to join us, and from other regions of the world to join us in this very exciting event today, but also on Friday. I remind you, it's World Oceans Day on Friday, international event. World events happening on the oceans, and one of the big highlights globally is us here in Bahia, in Salvador. So you probably saw invitations to that today at some point. If not, let me know, and I'll be happy to personally give you an invitation to this lounge event where we'll have many speakers. Okay. Without further ado, we'll continue. And as I mentioned earlier, we will have our regional perspectives first on the role of education in the blue economy. And to begin with, I'd like to introduce Mrs. Susanna Scott, whom, as I mentioned, is the representative from the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, and who manages the World Bank-supported and Global Environment Facility-funded Caribbean Regional Oceanscape Project. I'll let her discuss a little bit more in depth about the OECS and the crop and the role of education, and Think Blue specifically in the crop. Thank you very much. And Susana, please go ahead. I'll set up your PowerPoint in a second.